over the weekend, ladies and gentlemen, there was a monumental event, such a monumental event, that two large blockbuster films opened at the same time on the same weekend. Very different genres, very different themes, very different directors. Christopher Nolan directed Oppenheimer, a movie I quite enjoyed, but we're going to be talking about that later. And Greta Gerwig, your future Chronicles of Narnia director, brought you Barbie, the film, and together they brought in $511 million at the global box office.
I thought that it was $300 million.
No, I said together, both films.
Together. I thought it was 300. Wow.
Nope. Barbie brought in $337 million.
Barbie is almost like twice the amount.
Yep.
That Oppenheimer made.
Yep.
Mainly because of its rating. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. Yeah. That's.
But I think there are people taking their younger children to see Barbie, which is a bad idea.
You don't want either of your kids going to either of these movies. No. So, $511 million worldwide between the two movies. That's 100. I saw two statistics for Barbie domestically. I saw one that said 162 million, another that said 155. The $182 million international box office seems to be steady through both. And then Oppenheimer, $80 million domestically and $94 million internationally. Fun fact, IMDb rates Barbie at a 7.6 and Oppenheimer at an 8.8. Barbie has a very high rating on the verified scores. When you remove verified scores from Rotten Tomatoes, it drops into the 70s, right? So here's the thing. This is the biggest directorial debut for a female director, opening weekend, for Greta Gerwig, surpassing...
you gotta make those fake milestones.
Wonder Woman, not 1984, original Wonder Woman, some other films like that. Look, I don't know if it's rage. Do you think that this will end up falling off a cliff second weekend?
Oh, Barbie?
Yeah. A lot of people are saying that. I don't know if I buy that.
I understand why you would think that, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see dislike for the feminist messaging the way that I expected to.
I saw a lot of tweets that were saying, like, I saw this young daughter ask her mom, what's patriarchy, after watching the movie, so we know we're doing something right, guys.
Yep, we are screwed.
But, I mean, if you go to the Barbie movie dressed up in pink and you go with your girlfriends and it's supposed to be this fun movie that you're going for a girls' night out, you're going to like it no matter what the content of the movie is. It doesn't really matter if there's messaging in it or not.
Yep.
Like we were all expecting something that was less politicized, but I don't think that the mainstream audience really cares.
I didn't see it, but like from what I'm gathering from other people is that even though that's in there, it's still like a very well crafted movie. Like it is enjoyable to look at it, like it feel like the humor for the most part lands, aside from some standout stuff. But if you're going for that and it does have those things, I can understand. Like there's no draw for me to go to this movie whatsoever, so I wasn't going to. But if you are, like you said, somebody who's going and it does have those trappings, you're right. People are going to go see it. They're going to go see it again. And just like with everything else, every movie has messaging in it. Most people just overlook it and don't care. Like most people.
This one was more on the nose. And if anything, I think the themes and ideas in it were just confused.
Yeah.
Like if it was trying to be a feminist screed, it didn't really land.
In the chat, Radioactive Girl Scout says it's literally on the nose satire. I can't believe a pop culture podcast has no idea how to interpret this movie. It's hella embarrassing. Well, I think that's
satirizing feminism.
Yeah.
Because we know that Greta Gerwig is a sincere, earnest feminist.
Yeah.
So she isn't, if you're saying she tried to like satirize like the patriarchy, but it didn't land and then it ended up satirizing wokeness and feminism, that's their mistake.
The narrative was confusing. If that was the point, then it was not crafted well.
But that was not the point because we saw their interviews that they thought this was a feminist movie.
Yeah. I didn't. And here's the thing: like, if you're not somebody who pays close attention to Hollywood, none of this stuff's going to bother you because you're going to see an absurd world that does not reflect the real world, and understand and think for a moment that Hollywood just understands that this is being ridiculous and that this is not how the real world is. But we know that Hollywood largely does like to push a message like this as if it is the real world because they want you to believe that. And the little girls who are going to see this movie will not be able to parse through the satire and the themes in which are being dedicated towards adults and are still seeming to be lost in the mix, because I've seen a great variety of opinions on Barbie, and you're allowed to have those takes on it. I saw several people who said, like, look, it's not as bad as you think. This I disagree. I think that the messaging of the movie is extremely anti-male female cooperation, not so much anti-male, but is in it's anti anything to do with men and women at all getting together and getting along. But I think that the confused messaging is a problem, and you can say that we're dumb and we don't understand that. But the fact that we read this stuff all day, that we review movies, we talk about these things, and it's not 110% clear means that the director didn't do her job, or at least the writer didn't.
The most confusing part about the ending was that the real world is supposed to be this nightmarish Mad Men dystopia where women are second-class citizens. But Barbie still chooses to live in the real world. She seems to hate LA so much, but chooses to live in it at the end.
Yeah. This movie this could have been suspected, but the movie apparently had a marketing budget that was bigger than the actual movie. The marketing budget for this film was $150 million, according to Insider, which means that, they understood what they needed to do to put this across on screens. Also, if it's satirizing these things, I don't know if I buy that, because then the satire would have been portrayed in the trailers, and it seemed as if the trailers knew that the message of the movie would either be something that would be rejected by the audience, or at the very least confusing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just marketed on Barbie nostalgia and pretty colors.
A lot of people think that this was actually a secretly based film, or at least it tried to be feminist and woke, but failed. This one review said, "Why Barbie was good and Ben Shapiro got it all wrong." They tried to inject it with 2014 feminist woke talking points, but it was almost a bait and switch to appease the studios. Very meta, because the movie had jokes about how the Mattel executives care about the woke agenda, but in reality they don't. The woke stuff was the least persuasive aspect of the movie, same with the woke characters, and almost made them into a mockery. The movie cares about aesthetics and beauty. I question that, just because there was a trans Barbie and there was an obese Barbie, but that's besides the point. And it was more about Ken than Barbie. He was funnier and more interesting as a character. He had a character arc.
I do believe that they felt like they wanted to write for him more than they wanted to write for Barbie.
Men are more interesting even in a Barbie movie, and Barbie was too busy trying to find herself. And somehow in a movie that complains about the patriarchy, it accidentally made it look very fun and appealing. It didn't understand dudes in general. That I agreed with. Kendom seemed like a fun place to live.
Yeah, it did.
Brewski beers.
See, but the thing is I don't know if
houses.
They're still portraying the men as stupid. They're still portraying the men as completely incompetent. So maybe I did not look deeply enough into this movie, but the films together made a crap ton of money, $150 million on marketing, but also Sound of Freedom this weekend opened stronger than it did the previous weeks. It's up to $124 million at the box office. It made another $20 million at the box office this weekend. There was some debate back and forth as to which made more, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, or Sound of Freedom. The original take that I saw that it said that Sound of Freedom made 20.1 million and Mission Impossible made 19.5. But then another, by the way, that box office drop is 64% for Dead Reckoning, which is fairly substantial. But then I saw some fixed figures from one of these websites that said no, it was actually like 19.5 million for Mission Impossible and 19 million for Sound of Freedom. I don't know if that's Sound of Freedom wanting to pump its numbers so that they can say that it made more than Mission Impossible, or if that's a really, really bitter writer who just doesn't want to see the movie do well, trying to make sure that it didn't take third place. Could be either of them.
I want to talk about Ethan Van Sciver getting raked over the coals for his Barbie review. He said it's one of the best films of the year. He
All
said,
right,
I
man.
truly don't understand the haters. It's woke in the sense that little girls don't like their big brothers invading their girly worlds. It's from a child's perspective. And Ruth's Ghost even calls the patriarchy a made-up concept humans use to deal with the complexities of life. Truly a brilliant film, very well written, very complex, and very adult.
Hey, he could be right. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting this. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, it couldn't decide whether it was for children or for adults, though.
I will say that if you had left out the mom's monologue, it would have gained instantly more traction. I believe that was the only point where it really delved into truly bitter territory. But from that point on,
I mean, there were points in the monologue that made sense that are salient for like why it's hard to be a woman, but it was again like trying to do oppression Olympics, like who has it harder in the world, men or women, instead of being a more measured response. Ethan Van Sciver also is like still defending his stance. He said, Barbie's world exists in the imagination of little girls. Adult women remember being little girls and miss the simplicity of their Barbie dream houses. The real world is hard and it sucks for adult women in many ways, and yet Barbie chooses to become a real woman anyhow, which is the movie's theme. Like, it's a coming of age type of movie, except for the fact that Barbie is an adult the whole time.
And the third act of the film is extremely muddled, and the conclusion felt extremely rushed to me. But like, this is what I love about it, right? You're allowed to have your own interpretation. You're allowed to see these things as it were. And I'll give him this: it's brave to take that stance when everybody else seems to have such a harsh take on the film.
Yes,
what can
someone
you do?
was like, I don't even know how to explain to you that, like, how it was a woke screed, but you should watch Pop Culture Crisis you should watch their review to get a sense for why it was bad. But I mean, if you enjoyed it, you enjoyed it.
And you don't owe anyone an explanation for
you don't
anything
really
that
need to justify that.
And
Another person said, the Barbie movie shows a man rebelling against a matriarchy in which he owns nothing and his only value is in relation to a woman who doesn't really care for him. He goes too far and tries to dominate the women to restore balance, but this backfires, which essentially they interpret this as like an analogy for feminism.
Okay. I love the film theory. I love the debate about all this stuff, but that's what matters, right? Like, here's the thing. These in this industry, like, people can tell you you're allowed to have your own opinion, but there's plenty of people that it's like when I tell people that I like the Transformers movies and they're like, that's the worst thing ever. You're a horrible person for liking those movies.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yes. Yes, you do. You have your takes that you're allowed to have and your takes that you're not allowed to have, and that's BS. You're allowed to like whatever the hell you like, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for it. You don't even owe them a coherent answer. You don't even need to be... No, you don't.
For someone like Ethan Van Sciver who makes
I guess
content about entertainment, and it's his job to have coherent opinions about these things.
Even then, I say BS. Like, it's art, dude. Sometimes you just say it's art, and what speaks to you and what speaks to me is going to be vastly different based on your life experience, my life experience. Even so much as the tone and the mood you were in when you went to see a movie can matter. Like, I have markedly different reviews for things when I watch something when I'm in a good mood as opposed to if I go to something and I'm not in the mood.
I mean, I'm not so culture war poisoned that I have an allegiance to a certain side on a movie, you know? Like, there were parts of the Barbie movie that I enjoyed and there were parts I didn't. It doesn't have to be that serious. Also, I wanted to mention Margot Robbie said that her own friends were upset she didn't kiss Ryan Gosling in the Barbie movie. She said, all my girlfriends were like, well, you did a whole movie with him and you don't kiss? What's wrong with you? I thought you were kind of in charge on this one.
You're not allowed to do that anymore.
You can't have a romantic, sweet ending.
Also, I do have a meme to put up on screen. This was my favorite thing that came out over the weekend. If you like Ben Shapiro and you care about Ben Shapiro, yes, it says, let's say, hypothetically, that I am, in fact, a Barbie girl. Let's also say, for the sake of the argument, that I live in a Barbie world. Is it not then reasonable to assume that life in plastic is, in fact, fantastic?
I did watch his entire Barbie review.
42 minutes long. 42 minutes long.
He hated it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he said all the jokes are in the first 10 minutes, and
That's
that
not
was
true.
the end of the humor for the movie. I disagree with that.
Also, feminist academic complains that no women speak for the first 20 minutes of Oppenheimer. I knew there was a reason I liked it.
This has got to be a parody account. Like, I looked at her profile picture, and it looks like it was made by AI. And it said, fun fact, no women speak until 20 minutes into Oppenheimer, and then within a minute, there is a sex scene. Didn't pass the Bechdel test,
No,
I guess.
well, somebody also said that Barbie doesn't pass the Bechdel test either.
Well, why?
I just said
Because they're
read that
not real
somewhere.
women, they're dolls?
Maybe, I don't know.
I also saw a take from another clown on Twitter that said, people seem to love Oppenheimer, but I'll just say it. I was uncomfy watching yet another movie about tortured white male genius when the victims of the atrocities are glossed over by the script. Japanese people, interned Japanese Americans, and Native Americans had no voice. And then there's a community note under this tweet that says, Robert Oppenheimer was Jewish. His friends and relatives were murdered by Nazis specifically for not being white/Aryan.
And that becomes a plot of the movie, right? Like
Yeah,
it's, and
that's the entire reason why it was happening.
We'll get into that. That's very much worth it. Look, guys, just like what you want to like. Don't like what you want to like. What you don't want to like. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're not going to get a lot of examples. I do think, however, that we are going to see a trend now, perhaps where studios work together to release big films that have opposite audiences at the same time. So like you release a family film that runs directly contrary to a big budget R-rated movie or something like that. Maybe the studios will then work together to try and piggyback off this and make their own mimetic success. Imagine if The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia had come out in 2020 or 2018 rather than 2008.
Back then, this was self-explanatory, but we need to, I like that we can just accept that these movies have different audiences and that Oppenheimer is for the boys and Barbie is for the girls, and not everything needs to be made for everyone.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
despite the fact that in one of the Barbie trailers it said, if you hate Barbie, this movie is for you. If you love Barbie, this is for you. Not every movie can appeal to everyone.
It also means, ladies and gentlemen, that we will be inundated with Bratz movies and American Doll movies. People on Twitter pointed out to me like those already exist. I'm like, well, first of all,
not in theaters.
yeah. Well, even if they did, I'm like, but now they're going to be done and they're going to be given the budget and they're going to be given the marketing budget to do this. Obviously, maybe they'll get Greta Gerwig to do the Bratz movie. People were like there's like people correcting me. They're like, a Bratz movie came out in 2007. I'm like, I didn't know that, dude. I had no idea.
I liked the animated Bratz movie.
So, we're gonna get lots of this stuff now. We don't make the rules. We're gonna get Barbie 2 Electric Boogaloo. I don't know what it's gonna be about, but it's gonna happen. I'm guessing there won't be an Oppenheimer 2, but we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.